Okay, going to talk about some more about toms, talk about heads and tuning and microphones and so forth. This is the Pearl kit. This is the way I used to do things when I was playing this kit, and we're going to get into how I do it with my new kit in a different video. I'm going to tune this up a little bit. This is how I tune drums. It's a single ply resonator head on the bottom, and this actually resonator says Pearl. It's the original from 1986. So this is like 30 years old. It should have been replaced years ago, but I never did. I was too broke. I bought the red drum set, the big red Pearl drum set, because I wanted big drums, big toms. I was playing rock back then, and I thought big is better, big, deep. And always had trouble tuning some of the bigger drums, floor tom and everything. Trying to get this in tune. See how I'm doing this? I go around and match pitches on all the lugs. That's close. But the problem I was running into with tuning the big floor toms and stuff, once I got the voice out of the drum that I liked as best I could, it would resonate very nice, play well. Microphone, you stick a microphone on here. This is a cardioid microphone. They have a pattern like this, a pickup pattern like this. It'll pick up a long way, but around in here, if you get it in here real close like this, you have a bass proximity effect. And this is pretty much how you want to mic a drum if you can, because it isolates the drum from other noises. I mean, if you stick it up like this, you'll pick up cymbals, drums, snare, everything. You get it down here, it's primarily going to be amplifying just this drum. Well, what would happen would be the drum would resonate back through the PA. You'd have feedback back through the PA. You'd have a thing going all the time. And the point of getting the drum tuned up nice was to make it sound good and play well. But then as soon as you put the mic on it, you had to disable the drum head by putting duct tape or bar napkins or some kind of junk on it, or stick things on it, or detune it really badly. Ended up having to, what I call it, make the drum head flappy, just flapify it basically. I made that word up. And it ended up sucking really bad, because then you've got a drum that you hate to play because it doesn't sound good and doesn't play well, has no resonance, has no feedback to your hands when you hit it with a stick. So what I ended up doing is going to smaller tom sizes. This is my 13-inch, and this is the rims mount I was talking about on the other video. See how it suspends it? They got the rubber grommet there, and the whole thing is suspended to give it more resonance. You want to get more resonance, as much resonance out of the drum as possible, or I do. That's how I do it. And what I ended up doing was going to the smaller tom sizes. I used this 13-inch tom as my floor tom, because I could get a tone out of it, a note out of it, and it didn't hang on so far like the big floor tom did. So much resonance, the head vibrating and all this. This one would die off a little quicker. And for the rack toms, I went with my 8-inch tom, my 10-inch tom. For a long, long time I did it like this. This one needs tuning too. And I would take this cardioid microphone, like my 2 rack toms like this. I was limited by the number of inputs on my mixer, and I could only have 1 microphone for my 2 rack toms. So I'd split it in the middle here, try to find a happy medium if one drum wasn't as loud as the other. Just kind of move it around back and forth. If I needed more bass response out of one than the other, I could be closer to this one than that one. And that's how I managed to mix 2 drums with 1 microphone. And the heads I used was a factor too. This has a pinstripe on it. I don't normally use pinstripes. I normally use a 2-ply head, single ply resonator. And this is a 2-ply also, but I don't know, I always got along better with the non-pinstripes. And this is the hardest drum to tune I've ever had in my life, 5 lugs. And won't worry about it too much. But using the smaller toms let me detune these things pretty low. I could get them as low as possible without, and still have a voice without them distorting the head, or still have a voice out of the drum. And when you turn that up in the PA, that sounded pretty good. It had a nice beefy tone, even though it was a small drum. And we also had the PA tuned back then for vocals, and we had a horn in the PA that we're using. Had a big 2-inch hole that the high end came out of, and it changed the way the high end reproduced a little bit. So we bumped up the 1K slider, I think all the way up, if I remember right. Well, that also gave the drums a nice little spike at 1K. And people would come up to me, I've had this conversation more than once, people come up saying, what tom sounds are you triggering? And I'm like, I'm not triggering. I come up, show them the microphone to the cable to the mixer, and no sound source. But that's kind of how I did it. For people wanting to know how I used to do it back then, that's how I did it. I haven't tuned the bottom of this one. And on the next video, I'm going to talk about the DW drums that I'm using. Oh, I didn't mention, I also used to use a Mackie mixer, which is a pretty important part of the equation. It's got a real nice preamps in it, and it's got a nice clean sound all the way through it. And I don't recall exactly how I set the EQs on the mixer, but I only had 4 XLR inputs, and so I had to use 4 mics to get the whole drum set mic'd, and that's why I was splitting things like this. And the other inputs, I had to run back electronics, monitor, my vocal monitor, and I think the reverb took up the last channel. I'd run the reverb back so I could EQ it also. And that's how I used to get the tones out of my toms back in the day when I played with Aaron, Bad Penny. That's how I used to do it back then too. Just the toms have gotten smaller over the years because of the limitations of the gear that I'm amplifying everything with. Hope this helps. And I'll do another video here in a little bit.